There are many things in life that bring you joy. There are many hobbies that are a lot of fun and exciting and you look forward to. But even your favorite hobbies, even the most joyful things, sometimes can be a source of frustration. Today I want to talk to you about my top 5 list of frustrations with collecting. As a 20 plus year collector, it happens in cycles, it's ups and it's downs, and it continues to go on. We're going to talk about it today, mostly so that you know you're not alone. Happy Friday and welcome back to the Titanium Hanger. This is Mike, and today I want to talk to you about my top 5 frustrations with collecting. And you know, it really could be anything you collect. This kind of stuff happens all over collecting, whether you're collecting toys or shoes or whatever you collect. But the reality of this is it's going to be more focused on collecting Masterpiece Transformers. I might throw a couple of things in there that are examples of other toy lines, but the reality of this is collecting Masterpiece Transformers is extremely unique for a lot of reasons, and mostly because there are so many different companies that have their hand in the bowl that is Masterpiece Transformers. But getting started with this, my first one on my list, well, I'm gonna call it number 5. Number 5 is all of the replacements. It's frustrating that you have a figure that's on your shelf and I'm pretty happy with it. I'm pretty happy with my shelf. I'm pretty happy with this figure, and you don't really think you need a replacement. And then along comes another another company that makes you reconsider, makes you think, well, you know, that Unique Toys version of Blur was a good version. It still is a good version. I was perfectly content. I didn't even think that we needed Fans Toys Jabber at all. It's like, it's unnecessary release. We're wasting our time. Give us something we need. But once I have it in my hands, once I see it in both modes and compare it to Unique Toys, I realized that I actually needed it. It was something I really wanted. And Unique Toys is not bad, but this Jabber is that much better to me. Now, this other frustration to other people is that it didn't come out with this blue color, and there's some more stuff. I'm not so worried about that. That's not high on my list. What's high on my list is the fact that I gotta either sell my Unique Toys or display it in alt mode, which it's inferior in alt mode, vastly. So I got all these issues and all these concerns with this figure. And if it was just one figure, it wouldn't be a big deal. But it seems like we're getting replacements. Lots of replacements. And when it comes to the Springer, it's like, God, which one do you choose? Everybody's like, oh yeah, obviously it's Fans Toys. You want to get the Fans Toys one. But not always. I mean, it's a good figure, but I still think X-Transboss is going to be better. And I hear a lot of great things about the MMC version. So it's kind of like, how do you decide which one's for you? Which is the one that you want? And in the end, if you have one, and say you're happy with it, in the back of your mind, with all these options, you're looking at the other options and you're thinking, maybe I actually will like X-Transboss better. Maybe MMC is better. Wait, hold up a second. Unique Toys is pretty powerful. So number 4 on my list is availability. Like, the availability of these figures. If you're collecting Masterpiece Transformers, or even if you're collecting vintage line figures, the availability is a major frustration for collectors. Now, people that have collected all along, and say you pass on a figure such as this Bad Cube Grunt or Gears, and then you're like, okay, I saw it, I passed on it, I thought 70 was too much for a mini bot. Now you see that they're selling for $200-$300, however much they're selling for right now in the secondary market, and there is a chance that Bad Cube may not ever re-release this guy. They've re-released him twice now, so he might not get another re-release. And so you start to think, well, we're paying the extra price and all this stuff. But the reality of this is the availability of this guy, he's not as available to collectors as we would like. And we see this with almost every company. But since Bad Cube goes in these long dormant periods where you start to wonder if the company still even exists or if they're ever going to make anything again, then that's really a good example for this, because they are the availability problem themselves. They have some of the best figures and the best characters, and they have not been beat yet. There's not a better example out there. So, and making these figures unavailable and not reissuing them or re-releasing them causes a lot of frustration for collectors. And I see it in my comment section. People tell me specifically Bad Cube a lot, but of course the same thing goes for Fans Toys and a lot of other companies. But the reality of it is, come on, if Fans Toys puts out so many or whatever, you got to jump on it. You've got to jump on these figures when they're at retail if you don't want to pay a late tax or whatever that's going on with that. But these figures, the availability of them, and you just got to think, it's just amazing that they even exist. The fact that these things even exist is amazing, but it's frustrating that, I missed out and I had the ability to buy it and I just chose not to. Now I'm kicking myself. Well, I mean, I guess I can only blame myself, right? But in the end, if you're new to collecting, that's a whole new level of availability problem, a whole new level of frustration. My number 3 is the long waits. Once you make your mind up and you decide, hey, this is the figure for me, I want this guy and none others, and then you sit there and wait and wait and wait. Now, I've had that problem myself, but I know a lot of people complain about this Outrider, and they've been waiting, and they passed on the X-Transbots, and they passed on the MMC, and they're still waiting on this guy, and yet there's still no release date. In fact, I don't even think there's a full price up at most places. Also, this guy here, long wait. We know about this long wait, and I've probably talked about it way too much. But the reality of it is, waiting in this masterpiece Transformer collecting is really part of the game. Now, in some cases, I just pick up replacements, and I'd say, okay, I've got a replacement, so the wait's not as bad. But in other cases, I got rid of my replacement, so yeah, the wait gets a little worse in other cases. I think some of my frustration also comes to such an immediate society that we have. We have a 24-hour society. We have an immediate gratification. We get this stuff right away. Having to wait through, when you order something through the mail, you're going to wait a little while. You're going to wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks sometimes. And I get stuff from China in 14 days. To me, that's pretty quick. Now, we're having a severe holdup right now, what's going on, which, by the way, I'm not upset about. My frustration isn't so much about that at all. My frustration is about past situations where I've waited for 2 months when I'm used to only waiting like 2 weeks. So my next frustration number 2, is breakage. And yes, I have broken a few figures in my day, but that's frustrating to me. And I blame myself. But the reality of it is, sometimes I break stuff and I'm doing what it's supposed to do. I'm inserting it into the slot that it's supposed to go. I'm handling it a way that I've handled 100 other figures, and it broke on me. And that is a frustration of mine. Now, of course, you're going to blame the company, you're going to blame QC, and all of that stuff, but the reality of it is, I could have used a little bit more finesse, and I've been doing that with some of the modern figures, being a lot more gentle with them so I don't break them. But when I do break a figure, it's frustrating. And it's also frustrating hearing other people hate a certain figure because they broke it. And it's one of those things I could understand it. I understand. Like the MP44 with the broken knees and all that stuff. I truly understand people that are hating that figure because they broke it. And people send it back and don't want another. I understand that. People with, it's really odd. People that have a broken Beast Wars Megatron, the broken waist piece, still love the figure. They're just mad that the waist piece is broken. But they still love the figure. That's an interesting one right there. I actually have not heard of anyone that broke it that was mad, doesn't want another one. They didn't want a replacement. But with MP44, I was hearing people don't want replacements. They don't want to mess with another one. They just want to get rid of it and not deal with another one. But with the Beast Wars Megatron, and I just recently reviewed the KO, and the KO doesn't have the same issues that the original did. And now I'm seeing widespread breakages with Hound. I'm scared I'm going to break mine because I felt 5 or 6 times I would, even though he's my figure of the year and he's the best looking figure. The transformation's all right, and it looks amazing in both modes, and I really feel like it's kind of next level, kind of engineering. But to do that, the panels are so thin, breakage is almost inevitable on that figure. My number 1 frustration in collecting is price. Price is always an issue. And we're going to start with talking about this MP44 and the $450 price. Now I got mine for $328 or something like that. So significantly cheaper through Amazon Japan. And no digs or negative comments towards TF Source. They're charging the standard price. They also have product readily available for you to get, and the service through them is 10 times better and easier than it would be through Amazon Japan. So you're paying for that. But the price set by Takara is ridiculously high. But it's not just Takara. Yeah, if you collect vintage stuff on the secondary market, well, there's a huge markup on that. You know, it's funny too because I never really hear anyone complain about somebody trying to charge $10,000 for a G1 Megatron sealed in the box, but I do hear someone complain about charging $200 or $300 for a Masterpiece Transformer that hasn't been available for 7 years. My personal frustration is that I collect both. I collect modern, I collect vintage, and when the modern stuff dries up and there's not so much stuff getting released, I kind of try to fill in my gaps in my vintage collection, and it gets really expensive. It's very expensive. In fact, I almost want to go back to just buying modern released Masterpiece Transformers to take a price break from trying to catch up on vintage. Now I do want to take a second and talk about, I did buy 2 of the HasLab Unicrons. I think they were really expensive, and do I think that the HasLab Unicron is worth the $575 or the $628 or $626 or $627 after tax or whatever? And the thing is, I do think it will be, because things change every year. Everything gets more expensive every year. By the time that's released, it will almost look like a decent value, even if it's not looking like a decent value now. But what I'm seeing with the HasLab Cell Barge and some of the other things that we're seeing with the Matty Collector, Voltron, and all of those things, I'm actually seeing that getting these really hard to find one-time produced items is going to be really hard to track down later. If you want this figure later, it's going to be hard to get. But ponying up that price up front does sting a lot. It didn't feel any better with the Cell Barge, and it sure didn't feel good trying to catch a Matty Collector Voltron on the secondary market. So price is definitely one of my biggest frustrations on a daily basis, and I know it frustrates many other collectors out there. So what is the point of all this? What's the point of this video, Mike? You just ranting? Absolutely not. I'm not ranting. I'm going to tell you how I deal with all of these frustrations all the time, and it's been going on for 23, 24 years, whatever. But starting with my number 5. When it comes to all these replacements, sometimes I'm just happy with what I have. Sometimes I don't need the latest and greatest. I don't need the newest and upgraded. I mean, obviously with Cyclonus, I did get the Fans Toys and the other Fans Toys, or the recolor. But in other cases, I don't. So the reality of this is, you can just be happy with what you have. You don't have to get every new, latest, greatest thing. You don't, hey, maybe you'll feel behind, but it doesn't really matter. It's not the end of the world. If you're happy with what you have, then, well, you win. The availability thing. You know, if something's not readily available, it's hard to find. It's almost impossible to find. I was so frustrated with mini-bots. Well, guess what? Patience. Patience saves pockets. Also, there's the other thing that I've learned, is that if I want it bad enough, I pay the money and just deal with it. But if I don't want it that bad and it's just a little irritating, I could just say, you know what, I'll wait. Someone else will come out with another version, or it'll get re-released, or eventually one will show up in a Facebook group for a reasonable price, you know, a little more than the original price, but half of what everybody is asking on eBay. That works for me. The long wait for a figure. Instead of getting irritated about the long wait, which I kind of was about the X-Transbots Virtus, but I have 3 other Springers to whet my appetite and to fill in my display and to keep me happy, so it's not really that big of a deal. But instead of getting upset about this, I'm just letting the anticipation grow, the excitement grow, so when I finally get it, it's going to be one of those things that, well, hopefully it's not a letdown. And just like I had really big plans for this DX9 Minosaur, I mean, big plans for this guy. It's been almost 2 months, and it's still not here, but I'm sure it's going to arrive, and I've just made peace with it. For the breakage point, I actually did break my X-Transbots Cyclonus. That figure taught me to be more careful with future figures. That figure taught me that if you're ramming something in there, don't ram it in there. Be careful. If it feels like it's not going to go, then you need to reevaluate what you're doing, because you just might break it. And in 2 places, like I did. And for price, I really do think that I jump on the pre-order bandwagon now, and I wasn't on the pre-order bandwagon 2 years ago, maybe even a year and a half ago. But I'm on the pre-order bandwagon now. I get double discounts on Show Z. I get all kinds of stuff that makes this cheaper with the pre-order and the pre-order discounts. I look for the best price and the best deal, and so for that, not paying the late tax as often, but I paid the late tax on this guy, and it did sting, but you know what? I'm not mad about it. So let me know what your frustrations are in collecting. Is this list pretty close to yours? Or do you have all different types of frustrations that you want to talk about? Hey, talk about it in the comments, and I'd like to have a conversation. Like, subscribe, and Titanium Hanger out.